We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, D.C.
The top business stories live from Sky Studios. The government earmarks £650 million of taxpayer money in subsidies for electric vehicles. Thames Water admits it may not be able to avoid nationalisation as the utility reports a £1.65 billion loss for the year. Plus, after 3 heat waves this summer already, are more of us putting in air conditioning? We'll be speaking to the winner of this year's Apprentice. Very good afternoon and welcome to Business Live on this Tuesday with me, Darren McCaffrey. Well, the government is to bring back consumer subsidies for some electric vehicles through a new scheme which will receive £650 million worth of taxpayers' money. Households will receive a discount of up to £3,750 per vehicle when they buy a new electric car that is priced below £37,000. The previous Conservative administration had scrapped the incentive in 2022. Let's speak to Philip Nothard, who is the Insight Director at the automotive consultancy Cox Automotive. Philip, very good afternoon to you. I suppose the first question is this welcome news as far as you can tell?
I think very clearly this is welcome news, and any incentives, any support for the automotive industry is significantly welcomed, and clearly it removes some of the burden that the manufacturers have been currently holding to help this incentive to electrification.
In saying that, Philip, I think the average cost of an electric vehicle in this country is something like £47,000. So it's not going to help that many consumers, is it?
I think that's the bit that, we're waiting for the full clarity of detail around what vehicles are included in that sub 37,000, which manufacturers, which models within those manufacturers are included in that incentive scheme. But we are awaiting that full clarity. Again, it's welcome. Whether it's enough, we need to wait and see. But as you say there, a large proportion of vehicles for the consumer and the company car owner are excluded because they do come above that £37,000. And then it's into the detail of who those manufacturers are and whether they are entitled to this incentive.
As far as you can tell, though, Philip, is the concern here with consumers about why they're not necessarily buying these cars in the numbers that some had expected? It's not just about cost. There are other issues at play here. We know, like electric charging points, about the distance of cars, the battery. There's a lot going on here in terms of incentives that need to be solved.
There is. I mean, clearly, the cost of ownership plays into a lot of what the consumers want. I mean, in a recent survey, the consumer, 69% of those surveys said that they weren't willing to pay additional cost above a petrol or diesel vehicle for an electric vehicle, but also 86% said that they were expecting and would expect to see greater incentives for that transition to an electric vehicle. But I think what we are calling out today is the more impact on the used vehicle marketplace, because I think what the government is missing at the minute is, the used market for used car owners in the UK, of which 36 million vehicles on the road in the UK, small proportion of battery electric vehicles currently, but that volume is increasing. And at the minute, we have got the risk that these incentives could damage residual values, particularly in that nearly new market for used cars.
Yeah, and potentially also open up the market to lower cost Chinese imports.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the Chinese new entrants and from other markets are changing the landscape for the legacy OEMs. They're coming in with alternative solutions for the consumer and the company car driver. They're coming in with lower cost of entry. What we're not clear of yet is how many of those will be part of this new incentive for the sector from the UK government. But again, what we are concerned about is that in the last 24 months, cars under 24 months old, their residual values have dropped from nearly 78% of their original cost new to just 46% in the latest data that we see. And so, this challenge of the new car market is having a big impact on the used car market.
OK, Philip, thank you very much indeed for your insight this afternoon there from Cox Automotive. Thank you. OK, we're just going to bring you up to date with a statement we've got in from London Southend Airport. This in regards to, of course, that plane crash that we saw the other day in which tragically 4 people lost their lives. Well, the airport is saying that it will continue to remain closed until further notice following Sunday's tragic incident. Passengers, they're saying, should contact their airline for information and advice. The statement goes on to say that friends and families of those lost on Sunday are at the forefront of our minds. Our team continues to work closely with the Air Accidents Investigation Branch to support the work. We'd like to thank our passengers and local community for their understanding during this time. So Southend Airport saying that they will remain closed following that incident until further notice. OK, let's bring you up to date now with some of the rest of today's business news. And Thames Water has admitted it may not be able to avoid temporary nationalisation. That is, the heavily indebted firm reported a £1.65 billion loss for the year. The UK's largest water utility, which provides services to about a quarter of the UK population, is struggling under a nearly £20 billion debt mountain and is working towards a backup £5 billion rescue plan with senior creditors. Well, its chief executive, Chris Weston, explained to MPs how they plan to turn the company's financial state around.
When you look at the recapitalisation of the balance sheet, we absolutely had to have an FD, which landed on the 19th of December last year. And we needed that FD because it created certainty for potential investors around their investment in Thames Water. At the same time as we were running that equity process, we also had to run a restructuring process overseen by the courts that extended our liquidity and allowed us to bring in this super senior facility that created a firmer financial foundation that gives us liquidity if we draw on the first 1.5 billion to the end of this year.
The FTSE 100 has briefly reached 9,000 points for the first time as UK stocks benefit from global investors diversifying away from the United States amid uncertainty over Donald Trump's trade war. UK stocks have benefited from greater investor interests in non-US assets, a trend prompted by concern over Trump's volatile policy making. The US government has signed a contract with Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok, paying its parent company XAI up to $200 million to modernise the Defence Department. The deal was announced just a week after Grok dubbed itself Matcha Hitler before producing anti-Semitic stereotypes attracting criticism from Congress and the general public. And if you scan that big QR code on your screen right now, you will get through to our Money Blog with the very latest money news. It'll take you through to the Sky News app. Now, Rachel Reeves will call for more risk in financial services in her Mansion House speech tonight as the Chancellor tries to repair Labour's relationship with the city. Rachel Reeves will set out plans for what she claims will be the biggest set of reforms to financial regulation in a decade as she attempts to increase risk across the sector to boost growth and deliver better returns for the public. Well, let's speak to James Ashton, who's the CEO of Quoted Companies Alliance. And James, there's quite a list of things that the Chancellor apparently is planning to announce tonight. What's caught your eye?
Absolutely, Darren. There's lots of stuff. I think the great thing for my members and for people operating in capital markets is here we've got a Chancellor who's going to say to the UK population, let's get back into share buying again. Let's really have a look at all the great companies that are listed on the market, large and small. And I think that's not before time. It's about understanding that people need to invest in their future. There's some stats around today. 29 million UK adults have got cash sat in an account mouldering at 1%. If that had been in shares for the last decade, they'd have made a 9x return on that.
Yeah, I see that. The Chancellor saying that you're going to get more return if you invest in stocks and shares. There's also talk about changing some of the ring fences around banking that obviously have been in place since the financial crash. What's your sense of what the Chancellor's trying to do there?
I think it's really, taking a view on things a generation on that were put in place in the financial crisis. I mean, the banks themselves is less something I would deal with, from my members' perspective. But I think the general point is we've seen a lot of the conversations they've had with regulators over the last few months. This is really about, on the idea of risk. You can't regulate risk out of the system. You need a bit of risk if you want to make a bit of reward. And I think this is the Chancellor, loosening the shackles a little bit on the banks, and actually a lot of the stuff that I think she's saying is really crediting the financial services industry for what it does for the UK economy and what more it could do if the shackles were off a little bit more.
Yeah, I think it's been called the Leeds reforms, isn't it? And there's talk as well about trying to change effectively regulation in terms of the financial ombudsman service. There is a real sense that the government feels effectively, the bottom line, that regulation has stifled London, the city, and its ability to grow in the face of what we're seeing, competition from New York and elsewhere.
Yeah, I think there is that. The global competitiveness is a big part of what they're thinking about. And some of the stuff that's come out overnight on changes to the prospectus regime that we called for, and we've got, enabling growth companies to raise a greater proportion of capital, issue more shares without having to publish a prospectus, is really helpful when you think about the cost of raising that capital. And it puts the UK ahead of Europe, for example. I think there's also encouraging things there, about a listings task force being set up. What more can we do to make sure that great companies, either British ones or those overseas, come to the UK for the capital markets? And there's an admittance that the capital markets is kind of a catalyst for other, investment in the financial services industry.
And James, what's the overall sense here when it comes to Rachel Reeves? I mean, she's had a pretty torrid time recently, been forced to make U-turns in terms of welfare, for example. And we know the nation's public finances are in a pretty terrible state in many regards. What's the view, do you think, in the city, though? Because one thing that actually is on Rachel Reeves' side is clearly the bond market would quite good to remain inside number 11.
Look, I think the Chancellor's had a very difficult few weeks. I think what she's going to say tonight will be really welcomed by the financial services industry. It's not always government policy to be so positive towards the financial services industry, and particularly not a Labour government to do that. So I think that's all positive. I think there are certainly there's some disappointment. We aren't going down the road we hoped we would with ISAs, and I think there's some concerns about where we end up with the budget in October. We would encourage the government to reward the wealth creators and give as much certainty in and around the tax as they possibly can.
OK, James, appreciate your insights. That is James Ashton there from Quoted Companies Alliance, looking ahead to the Chancellor's speech in the Mansion House at 9 p.m. tonight, which we'll have live here on Sky News. Just to bring you up to date with another line emerging in regards to that crash we saw at Southend Airport over the weekend. This is now from Essex Police, and will probably explain why the airport remains closed, and that is that investigations are continuing, and they can confirm that 3 bodies have now been recovered from the site, but they are continuing to work on recovering a 4th body within the next 24 hours. You can see the utter devastation, of course, that plane catching fire as it crashed. The police saying it is an extremely complex operation which has been carried out sensitively and giving each person the dignity they deserve. 4 people, of course, died in that crash. Police saying they will work now to recover that 4th body. In the meantime, London Southend Airport will remain closed, and customers are being told to contact the airlines. Now, new research suggests that AI and automation are making our airport experiences easy. The survey conducted with 12,000 travellers suggests that travellers are increasingly open to automation if it doesn't come at the expense of the service. But how close are we in the UK to seeing fully biometric journeys, smart baggage tracking and signage that automatically translates into native language. All sounds terribly futuristic, but is it? Well, Christopher Evans is Chief Executive of Southend International, a travel payments platform and loyalty operator. Very good afternoon to you. I mean, it is fair to say that overall, compared to the past, the travel experience has got better, but still has lots of niggles for lots of people, doesn't it?
I think it can do. I think what we've seen is that there's significant investment going into how the journey can be improved, and automation's a key part of that. Airports overall are investing about $55 billion this year. That's set to increase to $85 billion by 2023. So there's a desire to really look at how that journey can be improved. We went out to ask travellers to understand what their experiences have been, and actually it was generally positive in the response back. 45% have said that their travel journey through the airport was increased and sped up, saving between 10 and 30 minutes, 20% saved up to an hour. So we're really keen to understand what people are benefiting from and then learn how we can improve our customers' experience through the services that we provide.
Well, just in terms of that, I listed some of the things that may well change in terms of, better automation, maybe for the fact you don't actually have to go through passport control, your bag's there when you actually get to the carousel, etc. What else are you hoping that travellers will see in the years to come?
I think some of those solutions are already live in place today, which has been great to see. Myself, I've travelled and used biometrics and had very quick experiences through security. Security improvements is a key focus for many people. Probably half a million people will go through security every hour. It's a significant touch point, so we're seeing improvements there, certainly improving the journey. For us, there's the ability to give people more information up front. So there's increasing surfacing of data from airports. We're looking at how we can provide that information through our customers' Priority Pass app, and airlines are doing the same. So actually, you're providing people with relevant information up front, which means it takes stress out of the journey. Because if you're in advance knowing likely queue times, where there's shorter queues, one side of the terminal versus the other, if you can get automatic tracking of your bags, automatic alerts of flight duration, actually you're seeding that information early to customers and giving them a better choice and removing some of the stress.
It's so true, Christopher. We can all cope with delays as long as we know kind of how long the delay is going to be. And trying to join the right queue is a sport in itself. Just finally in this, though, we're also seeing AI transform, aren't we, the travel business from the airline's point of view as well, in terms of being able to switch planes quicker, work out what's the best way to get to the runway. I mean, it's quite transformational stuff.
It really makes a difference. I mean, we surface maps of the airports within our app for our Priority Pass customers. I travelled with an airline recently, and it was giving really relevant information. On the way to the airport, it told me which door to enter the airport. It told me the route through security, and then where to go through to a lounge at the end of it. So without doubt, relevant mapping, relevant real-time information, and I think that's what we're seeing, the need to give relevant information to customers, and then personalised offers, people using the time in airports to increase how they shop and how they spend their time.
Christopher, great stuff. Quite exciting stuff as well to look forward to in the future, hopefully. Christopher Evans there from Southend International. Thank you.
Thank you.
OK, you're watching Business Live here on Sky News. Up next, as record temperatures keep us up at night, how many of us are actually getting air conditioning installed? I think we could all do with it. We're going to be speaking to the winner of this year's Apprentice after the break.
Turkey is burying its dead.
Whole families died in this collapse. Generations wiped out. I'm Siobhan Robbins, Sky's Europe correspondent based here in Berlin.
This is just a small sample of the deadly arsenal taken off the streets.
Anyone could say, I'll do that, and then have to go and shoot someone.
Yes.
Sky News, get the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
Live here from Washington.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place. And all at just the touch of the screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
We are under Israeli military restrictions in terms of some of the things that we can film, but it's important to be in there. What a slow drive for the president as he approaches his golf club.
4 more years!
Free wherever you get your news. I'm Mark Stone and I'm Sky's correspondent based here in Washington, DC.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report. Sky Business sponsors this report.
Just going to bring you up to date with a news line emerging from Edinburgh in Scotland. We're being told that 3 women have been arrested under the Terrorism Act there, aged 31, 34 and 42, after a van was driven into an external fence of a business premise in the Scottish capital. The incident happened this afternoon, and Police Scotland's counter-terrorism unit are leading the investigation and inquiries are ongoing. So 3 women have been arrested in Scotland, in Edinburgh, under the Terrorism Act. We haven't got any more information, but as soon as we do, we'll bring you to here on Sky News. Now, with all this hot weather, many of us are struggling to work from home and, of course, get sleep in the evening. So is air conditioning the solution? Well, delighted to say that we can speak to Dean Franklin. He's director at ADL Air Conditioning and, of course, the winner of this year's Apprentice. Dean, very good afternoon to you. It's quite incredible, isn't it, that actually very few of us genuinely do have air conditioning in our homes, sometimes even in the workplace too.
Yeah, I think it's a no-brainer, really. I'm struggling to think of a reason why people are not having air conditioning installed in their homes. You know, they need it.
Well, I think in part it's around regulations, as far as I understand it, particularly in London. You have to go to a long way to prove that you can cool your house down. Have you come across that in terms of what you're trying to do with air conditioning, that actually sometimes it's the rules that are the obstacles?
Yeah, the planning permission can be a problem, but we can always figure out a way around it. There's actually units out there now that doesn't need a condenser, so no outside unit. So I think, yeah, we can find a solution for any problem.
And just in terms of air conditioning, it does seem to us in the UK, and I think lots of Europe, as a luxury, frankly. You know, we look at other countries that are almost powered on air conditioning all year round. Is that also an obstacle for lots of people? They think it's going to be quite expensive.
Nah, see, it's not a luxury no more. It's an essential. You wouldn't live without heating in your home, so why are you living without cooling? You wouldn't go to work in an office space if it didn't have air conditioning. So why are you going home and sleeping in your bed and you ain't got air conditioning? So
well, I can tell you that I'm not sleeping very well because it is particularly hot.
You need to give me a call, Darren.
I know, I do. How long do you think it's going to take in terms of like attitudes are going to change, or are they already kind of changing on this?
Yeah, I think the phones are ringing off the hook at the moment. I think people are realising that you can have it installed really easy and it's not as expensive as what people think. And it does save you money on your energy bills. You know, people have got it in their head that air conditioning costs a fortune to run, where in fact it's the opposite. It saves you money.
OK. And Dean, just very finally, I must ask you, what was it like winning The Apprentice and how's it been since?
Yeah, it was good fun. You know, it's been crazy since, especially with this heat wave. Yeah, it's just keeping up with all the work at the moment. It's just non-stop.
OK, well, you're doing well for yourself, clearly. Dean, we really appreciate your time this afternoon. Clearly quite cool there in Essex in many ways. Dean Franklin, thank you very much indeed. OK, well, that is it from me on Business Live for this afternoon. There's no programme tomorrow morning, but we are back tomorrow afternoon at 4:30. Do join me then if you can. Up next, it is the News Hour with Mark Austin, including more on that massive data leak from the Ministry of Defence involving Afghan nationals. Mark will have that and the rest of the news from 5. And I'll see you tomorrow afternoon. Goodbye.
I'm Stephen Murphy, and I'm Sky's Ireland correspondent based here in Dublin.
The waters of Ireland and Britain should be home to great white sharks.
If there are great white sharks in this area, there's no reason they wouldn't come here